What is going on, everybody? It's another conversation with Jason and Justin, and I am so happy to welcome Jonathan Bowen to the show. Jonathan, we watched your movie, and I am really glad I don't have to lie to you because it was awesome. Like, seriously, it was really, really good. I went into it thinking that I was going to get something like Clerks, and it's nothing like that, and I was pleasantly surprised with all of it. I'm a big fan of your lead actor in the movie as well. And I thought he did a really good job because it's very different than some of the stuff he's played, like from Desperate Housewives and John Tucker. But yeah, man, first off, good job. Like, fantastic.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you liked it. And thanks for having me also.
Yeah, we're also bearing the lead. Yeah, talking about your movie, The Comic Shop. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sure, that's true. No, Jesse, you're right. I mean, Jesse, did a great job for us. We were so happy to have him. But as we cast him, and I watched everything he had been in small stuff, bigger stuff, and I got about halfway through, and I was like, he's a really good actor, but I think he hasn't often gotten a chance to play roles with a little bit more like meat on them. I mean, it's very much like, okay, in this Hallmark movie, like you're the hot guy. In this one, you're like the detective dude, the Martha's Vineyard kind of stuff or something like that. And then, I kind of actually like the, why am I blanking on it? His Dead Rising zombie movies, which I actually liked those movies. I thought those movies were good. And it was a little bit different from some of his recent stuff. But yeah, he really did a great job for us. And I think he had to play a lot of range in that role as well. As he gets to play a grouch a lot. So.
Jonathan, I like to ask you, where are you from originally?
Oh, I was born in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
And so I lived there up until I went to film school twice, actually, and I in LA both times, and I dropped out both times. The first time I was 18, I just I didn't really like the college I was going to, and I think I couldn't get over my bitterness because I really wanted to go to USC or UCLA, and I worked so hard in high school, and it just didn't happen. So then when I went down the second time, I stayed in LA and I did film, but I got through like they call it like the boot camp part of it. It was like a 1-year program, and I thought, okay, like 1 year is pretty good. I'm getting pretty sick of school because I'd already finished college by that point. And a lot of these kids were 18 and they hadn't gone to college. They just went right to LA Film School. Yeah. And I kept hearing over and over that, like, oh, well, you kids are going to learn the most, like, once you're out of school. You kids will learn the most on set. And I heard it enough. Right? Yeah, and I was like, I could still get back, like, most of the money that I spent at the school. So I was like, I mean, if these teachers are right, I think I'll take their advice and just go do it. So I used some of that money to go buy gear, and we started a company, one of the other students and I, which was short-lived, but then I started my own company. We remain friends to this day. He's a great guy. But we just kind of realized we're both very, I don't know, like we both want things our way. And business partners are hard. Like, it's like a marriage. And I think we had like two very strong men in this marriage where it was like just not really going to happen. But yeah, so that was my second venture. And I stayed in LA for about 5 years. Did a feature film there, did my shorts, and I kind of learned everything I needed to know. And then I kind of moved back up to Portland unintentionally. It's not a city I'm a big fan of, but I met my wife there. So I end up.
Some good things, yeah.
Yeah, so I ended up up there for like a bunch more time. I have family and friends up there, and then I kind of broke one day, and I'd been wanting to move to Vegas for a long time. And I just told her, I was like, I was sitting on the couch and I was just all depressed. And I was like, I can't take it anymore. She's like, what do you mean? And I was like, it's just cloudy. It's rainy every day. I've lived in the city for 31 years of my life. I got to get out of here. I can't do this, And so we moved to Vegas about 5 years ago, which ended up being perfect timing with the pandemic. I've got a pool here. So when they were shutting things down, I just floated in the pool for like months. The only thing that sucked is like I have like a TV out there for baseball. And, of course, all the sports were canceled for so long that I just listened to podcasts, basically.
You and everybody else. It was a really good time to be a podcaster. That's
Oh yeah. Oh, it's so. I know. I'm like, what else can I follow? Let's see. That's look kind of interesting.
True crime spiked, like the podcast for true crime spiked during the pandemic. But what was the movie, or what was it that made you want to tell stories with the medium of film?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I guess my story of like wanting to be a filmmaker is pretty geeky, but it was the Star Wars special editions, and so I wasn't really excited about them coming out. As far as I don't know, I didn't really care that much, but everyone in my class seemed like really excited, and so I thought, well, okay, I guess I better check this out. So go see Star Wars in theaters, and I've seen it a million times at home, and it was different. It was a different experience, just like the commercial said. It was actually true. So when I got to the theater, we tried to get our tickets, and it was, I always remember, it was 2:30 on Saturday of opening weekend, and then they told us they were sold out until 10:30, and like, I mean, my mind was blown. I was like, doesn't everybody have this movie at home? Like,
Right, yeah.
how could it be sold out? It doesn't even make sense. So I convinced my mom, even though I was like 14, to stay up late. I was like, please, I really want to see this movie. So then when we get there, all the fans are dressed in like Jedi robes and Princess Leia and lightsabers everywhere. It's just crazy. And my first thought was kind of like, wow, this is so weird. Like, you know, like what a bunch of freaks, right? And little did I know I would become one of those freaks eventually. But as I was sitting in the theater, and you could just feel the energy. It was so electric. And I remember they were cheering like everything. Lucasfilm logo, Star Wars on screen, first appearance of R2, like everything is, you know, cheered. And it kind of gave me goosebumps about like 15 minutes in, and I just thought, wow, like this movie is 20 years old, and someone made this movie, George Lucas, and has this kind of impact on all of these people that even 20 years later that it's sold out, they're all dressed up. And that made me think, man, like that's a pretty powerful thing. Like film is pretty meaningful if you can get people to care this much about something, you know, for so long. And that really kind of started me on my journey. I became like a huge Star Wars fan. I saw it again a couple times in theaters, and of course the other re-releases, and I think it started my interest in like if you're really big fan of something like Star Wars, right? Then you head down the rabbit hole of like, how do they make the models? How do they do the effects? And I got really interested in all the behind the scenes stuff, all the making of books. And so that was kind of the start of the journey. Then I went to like running a critical review website. And so really kind of delved into film history as much as I could.
Yeah, I saw that. First off, you got a birthday coming up, man. So happy early birthday. And we were actually born 8 days apart. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, that's awesome. December.
That's really cool.
I'm the 20th in 82.
Oh, nice. Wow. So
Yeah.
we were born like almost right next to each other. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really funny. That's so funny. I think I could be wrong. I'm gonna feel bad if I am, but I think Jesse's birthday is like December 8th. If I'm remembering right, or it's sometime right around mine, because we celebrated his birthday on set, and I didn't really want my 40th birthday to be like
Right.
working, to be honest. But yeah. I tried to look at it a different way. I'm pretty protective of my birthday. It's not that I think it's so special, but I like to do my own thing. Like I want it to be like my day, you know? Mm-hmm. And then I was thinking about it a bit and thinking, you know, it's better to be on set, like directing my second movie after this 12-year wait between making features, than to be sitting at home, like wondering when I'm going to get to do the next movie, you know? So I was thinking it could be worse. Like, I don't mind. This is kind of a unique 40th birthday.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's cool. So where did the comic shop, where did the idea for it come from? Was it the side of the small business? Was it some type of like paper? Like, was it the pandemic that sparked it? Like kind of the uncertainty of like what was going to happen after that? Like, where did it kind of drive that?
So I wrote it in 2018, and I actually came up with the idea. I'm trying to remember if for sure I was on the plane or if I had the idea before, and the plane is the first time I wrote anything. I'm kind of forgetting that, but I had thought back to like when I was a kid, and I loved comic shops. I had a whole little note card, you know, old school, right? You write the note card with the phone numbers and the address on them. And we had one we regularly went to. My mom and I. She would always take me. She's such a good sport, you know. And it was the guy who ran it. He was named Mike. A little bit of laziness there. I probably should have changed the name, but he's always a Mike to me. I don't know. I couldn't get over that he's Mike, and we don't use last names, so you know. And it's highly fictionalized. Like, so Mike was the kind of guy who, like, he was actually a pretty decent looking guy. So I know, Jesse Metcalfe, you know, Jesse kind of like, he looks a little different in our movie, you notice too. Like, I've had people be like, that's Jesse, and he went with that kind of thing. So as I went in year after year, Mike wasn't there sometimes, and eventually I found out he was drinking across the street. And one of the employees kind of threw him under the bus. And before that, it was, he's not in today. He's busy. He's got an appointment. And then one time I was like, oh yeah, he's across the street drinking. And I'm like, you know, when you're 11 or 12, you don't really understand what that means, unless maybe you had a parent that, you know, but I didn't know. So this was kind of me as an adult grappling with what was this guy going through? Like, was the business going rough and that led him to start drinking? Or was he was drinking and that caused the business to get rough? And so eventually, last I had heard from another shop owner was that he shut down the business and then he went to go drive for UPS. So there was a little part of me that I wanted to give Mike the happy ending that he didn't get in real life.
Yeah.
And I also want to imagine as an adult, you know, maybe this wasn't his dream to own a comic shop, because I think you guys can understand when you're like 10, 11, 12 years old, you think that's the coolest thing in the world. Like, wow, this guy owns the comic store. I just get to go here sometimes, but I would like be here all the time if I could, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And so you don't think as a kid that, like, dude, maybe this is just like running any other business and it's a lot of hard work and pain in the butt and all that. And so as an adult, I thought maybe Mike he didn't want to do this. Maybe he wanted to draw comics, or, you know, maybe he was an illustrator. Although the real life Mike showed no, I don't think that's true. It's completely fictionalized. And then what I did is I took, as I was writing this, I took some of me and then infused that into the character, because I felt like, for me, you know, making movies is what I've always wanted to do. And I made a feature in my 20s, and then it was about 12 years between movies. And in the meantime, I was doing like corporate work. I run a company. We do like all kinds of videos, but it could be senior living videos, healthcare, financial services. It's all B2B stuff. And, you know, I'm proud of the company in the sense that we've been here 16 years, and it's hard to run a small business and keep it going. But that level of pride doesn't translate to like passion. It's just not what I ever wanted to do. And so I wanted to make the character of Mike having that kind of almost middle-age thing where you're like, this isn't what I was born to do. Like, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. And so that's kind of like me as Mike. And then I put a little bit of me as a kid in Brandon, that sort of youthful exuberance. I will succeed. There's no doubt, you know, and it was almost like younger Jonathan and older Jonathan, who's now cynical and a little grumpy, get to meet each other. And then the younger one sort of changes him. But they each, one thing I like a lot about the movie is that it shows that the way that relationships are so important and change people more than just like A to B. Because in a lot of ways, right, the kid, Brandon, impacts Mike's life more than Mike impacts his. Even though Mike was a teacher. And then, of course, that changes the father-son relationship with Brandon and his dad, Kurt. So, you know, I thought that was something that was like powerful, because when you're dealing with indie film, what can you do, right? We don't have a lot of effects and all that, so we have to have like great characters that you actually care about and can believe that these are real people.
So you've got the script, you've got the idea. What goes into the casting process? Because these aren't no names. Like, a lot of independent films don't get this caliber of acting that I saw in this. And I mean, Tristan she's in some stuff, and Jesse obviously has been in some stuff. And, you know, Micah is a relatively new actor, and he is great for a younger actor. And I was really, really floored by your cast. And, you know, we can discuss Eric Roberts and Carrot Top too, but those three in particular, Jesse, Tristan, and Micah, just really, really were strong.
Yeah, I agree. One of the linchpins from the start also was we knew that whoever's going to be playing Brandon is going to be a no-name, and they're younger, so they're not going to have like worlds of experience. And I remember thinking the whole time, like, oh, they have to be good. I mean, it's basically these are the co-leads. If the kid isn't good, the whole thing just falls apart. And we got really lucky with him. I had seen his reel. I could give you the actual honest story, and it's a little stupid. So I'll be honest, but it's miscommunication in today's day and age. So my casting director sends me a picture of Micah, and I'm like looking at the picture, and I'm like, oh, he's perfect. Like he doesn't look like too old to play the role. He's small. Are you sure? Is this kid? Are you sure he's over 18? I'm like, no, he's 20 years old. I'm like, okay, wow, yeah, this is perfect. I told him from the start, please do not send me 28-year-olds playing 15. I can't with that. Like,
just Saved by the Ballot. Yeah, be sweet.
Yeah. and I was like, then you're gonna make me into a hypocrite, because you know how many times I've complained about this, and now I'm gonna go do it. I don't think so. Basically I said, yeah, he looks great. And so then all of a sudden it's like a day later, I'm like, okay, Mike is on board. He said yes. And I'm like, what, do we not get a reel? I haven't even seen his work. Like, I just told you he looked good for the role. We need to see him act, right? And she's like, oh, I thought that they sent you. Who's they? I thought the producer sent you the reel. I thought that's why you wanted him. I'm like, no, you sent me the picture. I never saw a reel. I don't know where this reel is. And so then I do get the reel, and I'm like sweating bullets, like, God, he better be good, And I finished seeing the reel. I'm like, okay, no, he's really good. And then it was kind of like, well, let's set up a Zoom call with him and Jesse to make sure that, there's some chemistry there, and Jesse likes him. And that went well. So that is kind of cutting into the middle of the story, because you are correct. So with some of the name stuff, when I did my first movie, which I'm really proud of, we kept having issues with this. Like, we finished the movie, and I think it's a good, funny, like, guys romantic comedy. Almost like if you think I Love You Man or Forgetting Sarah Marshall, those kind of ones that those aren't just for your girlfriend. Like, these are guys movies that are just funny as hell. So when we did the casting on this, it was like, we have to have a name, because when we finished the last movie, we had HBO, Cinemax, like all these big cable networks said, yeah, it was good. We liked the movie. But, unfortunately, there's no one in it. So, like, we can't really help you. And it was so frustrating hearing that your movie is good, but there's nobody that they can market. So they don't feel like there's much they can do with it. And I said, I had 12 years to think over. I'm not making that mistake again. I'm not going to do it. Like, I'll make a new mistake, but I'm not going to make the exact same one again. Yeah. So the whole thing was like to talk to a distributor before we made the movie and ask them, can you provide us like a list of names that would move the needle, that could get the budget back on this movie? And so we did work our way somewhat through that list, but it sounds more, I don't know. It sounds more formal than it was, because it was haphazard, like all over. We had a couple offers that we made that I really wasn't a fan of, but the producers were like, oh, let's try to get him. And when they said no, I was happy they said no.
Yeah, Jesse really seemed to fit, right?
Yeah, Jesse really fit in a way that I was excited about, because I believed, and he said this in a few interviews, that he could identify with the role as somebody who, like, isn't necessarily where he wants to be, like he's been a successful guy. He's, most of us would be like, man, he's really successful. But if you think about it, like, he wants to be getting more roles that have that range. Like, he didn't want to be stuck on Hallmark forever. No disrespect to Hallmark. It's just that, he liked to branch out and do different stuff. And so I think he could see a little bit of Mike, like, about that anxiousness or frustration. Like, I'm not getting any younger, and I really want to be in the place where I thought I could be when I was 20, And just because he had such a meteoric like start of the career, I mean, I feel like everyone knew him, even though I never watched an episode of Desperate Housewives in my life. But like, I knew who he was. I knew who everyone was on that show. I saw the ads a billion times, and in the magazines talking about it and all that. So the Tristan one is kind of funny and kind of dorky. I love the Tristan casting is my favorite in the sense that like I felt the most agency over it, I guess you would say. Like it was all my choice, but when you have a list of people, then you're kind of like, okay, well, let's see who says yes. So for Tristan, we made like, I think 2 other offers, I think, before her, maybe 2 or 3. And I didn't really know who 2 of them were. Like when I looked up the stuff they'd done, I was like, okay, I mean, yeah, okay. I guess, and the agents are pushing you on them. They're like, well, look, their star meter's pretty good. They're going to be tomorrow's star. And I'm like, okay. So we got to the point where like, okay, who else can we offer? We actually don't have that much time before we shoot. It was probably 4 weeks, 5 weeks. And I said to the producer, I said, well, have you guys ever heard of Tristan Mays? Because I just had watched MacGyver over the pandemic, the reboot.
Yeah.
And I will never forget that was a show at a particular moment in time where the pandemic had worn on for quite a while. And I remember watching, just kind of binging the episodes and having this thought like, I hope I get to direct again, and just like, is the pandemic ever going to be over? Are we ever going to be able to go do anything? Who knows? It seemed like it was interminable, right? And so then I thought, well, Tristan was really good in MacGyver and kind of plays, the character she plays is not so dissimilar from Alex as far as the attitude and personality goes, or even the dress style. So when I mentioned that to the producers, one of them was like, yeah, I know who Tristan is. And I said, well, I think we should offer her. I think she'd be great if she would do it. And she got back to us in 48 hours and was like, yeah, absolutely, I want to do it. So
awesome.
That was pretty cool.
For indie films, did you have a lot of time to shoot? Or like when I've talked to other people that have done indie films, it's like we have a really consolidated like window to make this film. Was that a similar constraint for you or not really?
Yeah, it was. When we had the first budget, so you get your budget and then you get your first schedule. And the first schedule, I thought, okay, this sounds pretty good. Like we shot my first movie in like 12 days, but had 3 pickup half days and 1 pickup full day. So, it was kind of like it was about 14 and a half days. And so they showed me this schedule and it said 18 days. And I thought, okay, yeah, no, I think that would be good. I think 18 will be totally fine. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, we're doing this other thing and that thing. And, we're going to have to cut down to 17 days. I'm like, okay, I guess so. And then we keep moving on. And all of a sudden it becomes like, we got to shoot this thing in 15 days. I'm like, oh man, like, I don't know now, because there was 2 things that were complicated. Like when you see the movie, where the bowling alley was and the convention, the San Diego convention stuff, I could not wrap my mind around how we shoot these things both now, because in 15 days, somehow now that has to be the same day. So I'm just thinking like, I don't see how that's the same day, guys. I think we need a 16th day. And so then it was like, well, we have to find a location that has both of those things in it. I'm like, great. Yeah. We have to find a location with a bowling alley and a giant, huge convention center. That sounds great. And so then they were kind of like, well, it will all come together. These things always work out. And I'm like, you guys are giving me anxiety. Like this, I hate that. Like we'll just play it by ear. The universe will magically shine its light on us or something.
It can also not. Like
it can also not. Yeah. And so then we had some actually kind of some annoying issues and some funny. I warned them about this, but we tried to rent some of these spaces that were like really perfect. We thought this one would be a good one. And they said, yeah, unfortunately, we only have a couple days available in all of December because all the corporations are renting these places as like their year-end events or their holiday parties, all this kind of stuff. And so we kept striking out. We found, I don't even remember what this one was, but we found another location that had the bowling alley and had some sort of like usable convention space. And I'm not joking. They told us that we could not shoot there because our lead actor, Brandon, Micah is 20 years old, and they serve alcohol.
Oh man.
But I was like, but it's going to be a closed set. He's working professionally. Like, what is the concern here? I mean, wouldn't we be paying to have sole access of that area?
Right.
They're like, well, I'm sorry, it's corporate policy. So there was one where I was like, okay, I guess it would have been helpful if Micah was 21 instead of 20. But we finally found this place, and it was it's the Silver Nugget all the way up in like North Las Vegas, and it really was not a matter of like, what do you think, Jonathan? I'm like, what does it matter what I think? I think it's the only place available. So, the answer is yes, let's do it, you know. and there was even drama there because filmmaking is full of just idiotic drama. So they were trying to tell us like early on the morning of that we need to cover up the silver nugget like logo on the bowling wall, and I'm looking at it going like, it's the whole wall. Like, there's no way to shoot around that. Like,
why wouldn't you want promotion, right? Wouldn't it be a promotion?
That's what I was figuring.
Yeah.
So then we kind of went back and forth, and I kind of told them, I was like, we're shooting it anyway, so I don't know what to tell you. Like, I think it'll be fine. And so finally we got clearance, like just before we started filming, where they're like, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, you can show it. But, you know, there's no day of filmmaking that should be free of stress, right? It's always got to have it. And that was just one of 100 things that day.
So where was the comic book shop? Like, was that an actual comic book shop, or did you have to make one up? Did you have to create one?
Yeah. Okay. So both comic stores are real. That was a huge discussion very early because we started location scouting even before we cast. The producers came during the summer. It was nice and toasty. And then we shot in November and December where it's freezing cold. It's supposed to be during the summer, as you guys know. I hate it if you watch it a couple times, you might notice a few tree leaves here and there that maybe don't look as summery as they should, but you know, that's filmmaking, right? So we did decide to just use a real comic store because we felt that building it out, even though it would give us a ton of control, could be really a nightmare getting like all the stuff we needed in there. And so what we figured is like, let's have the comic store. That's the base. We got clearance from maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 different indie comic companies that sent us like stacks of comics that we could put on the front, you know, so at least if the rest of the stack wasn't cleared, at least the thing in the front was, and you know, you're not going to see much besides that. And the guy was really awesome. Like we kind of got a steal for renting that place. But if you saw the rival comic store with the life-size AT-AT and the Silver Surfer in there, it's like the coolest comic shop I've ever seen. If I had that as a kid, I would have been flipping out. So that comic store we filmed in for one day, and it cost more than 8 days of filming at the other. But I just had to have it. Like I told them, I said, look, I know it's a lot of money, but look at this. This is your Death Star of the movie. Like, it has to look so obviously better than Mike, so crushingly better that Mike is screwed. And if we just go get another comic store that looks 30% better, I think it weakens the entire story. Like, I just don't think it sells it. And I thought when they walk into that place, that sells it. That place is like, wow, yep, this must be a trust fund kid or something who made this store.
Well, you know, and as silly as it might sound, is like, to me, like the noticeable thing was the lighting, how bright it was, how everything was like, it's like you could see good reflections on comic books and stuff. Whereas, like, I was like, this is some money here. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And you know what's funny about that too is, thank God for that lighting, because they at the price we were paying, it was 2 days filming was simply not an option. So I thought, so we're gonna film every single scene that's here or in the back room or anything. It's all got to be on this day. And it was the last day of filming. And I was nervous about that. I just didn't know how we were going to fit it into 12 hours. But one thing that helped is that lighting. So when we location scouted, my cinematographer is like, it's pretty much lit. We're pretty much lit. And then my first AD is like, oh, Ryan, you can't tell me that, bro. You can't tell me that. Like, hair and makeup needs the time to get Tristan ready. And, you know, girl, she's going to take time to get her ready. And then we got to get Jesse ready. And Ryan's like, I'll give you time. You know, we'll still throw up a couple key lights, you know, but as far as the background goes, it looks fine. It's totally lit. And so that really did save us because the location was already so well lit. We didn't need to do a lot with it. We just had to put, just make sure the actors' faces look good, and you're good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Speaking of the opposing comic book store, Chad or Trevor or whatever, he was a great villain. I was like, man, I enjoy not liking you very much.
That's good. I think he did a great job. There was a little search for who that might be. We had like brief talks with Frankie Muniz, which I thought would have been. I thought that would have been fun too. I definitely wrapped my head around that too long. And when you're casting, you always do this. You always fall in love with an idea. You're like, oh man, I hope this person says yes. I can't imagine anyone but them. And then once you actually have your people, now I can't imagine anyone except for who we had. But Chad Trevor Einhorn. He had a good little arc in Mad Men. I had not seen the show, but The Magicians, I guess he was like a recurring Magicians. I'd like to see that show actually, but I didn't get a chance to. And when I heard about the Mad Men thing, I do love Mad Men. I was like, okay, this would be really cool. And he's in one of the last episodes of Curb Your Enthusiasm that came out recently too, a couple months ago.
That's fun. Yeah, that's cool.
I actually love that show. So the funniest part is like he is so horrible in the movie, like such a douche.
Yeah, just awful.
But like in person, Trevor is absolutely the nicest guy. Like we were talking about his travels, I think, to Europe, and he just was like so nice and cool. I didn't get to know him too well because he was only there for about 3 days.
Sure.
He shot him out. And the funny thing is you forget sometimes when I'm so busy with everything. I see, okay, 3 days, right? All right, that's cool. And then when the day comes, I'm looking at the scene going like, oh, this is just the scene where he sets a fire. Like he doesn't talk in the scene at all. So it's like, okay, so his whole first day of work, he has no lines. All right. And then it's like one of the other days, the next day, the convention thing, he's only in one scene, like all day long. And I was like, okay, so his first 2 days of work here are pretty easy. And then we really put him to work on that final day in the nice comic store. Yeah, then he's in almost every scene, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really good.
So
when does the comic shop come out for everybody to check out?
So we're still working on that. We have a distributor, Quiver. And so we're making all these deliveries. Like the deliverables on a movie could be like the stereo sound, surround sound, closed captioning we had to get done. All those little elements, and of course all the legal stuff, like all the paperwork saying, yes, you do have the right to this music. Here's the actor contracts and all. So we're plugging away at that and should be done soon. And then their job is to go get us a streaming deal. They deal with all the streamers. But in today's world too, the funny thing is you never know, these things bounce around so much. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if we started on one streamer and 2-3 years later we're on a different one. And I don't mind that much, but like I have all the streaming services, so it throws my mind off sometimes. Like I better see this movie because it's leaving in a week, and then it goes to another streamer that I have also. So I'm like, there was no hurry to see this. The only thing that changed is it went from Amazon to Hulu or Amazon to Netflix or something like that.
What's nice though, as a creative and somebody who makes films, is something could go to Netflix that was on Amazon, and then suddenly it's kind of like Suits is a good example of that. Like the audience just explodes because people think it's exclusive. I've seen that with movies that people think are Hulu exclusives, and then they end up on Amazon. They're like, this Amazon movie's fantastic, and you're like, it's been out for years, but everybody suddenly found it. So
yeah, I think that is really neat. You're right, it can give something like a new life. And I think that that's something I hope for this movie, is that it is something that can build momentum and buzz, because we are small. Like we don't, that's what we have going, is that people talk about it or tell their friends or something like that. But it's not like we've got, we have good names and it's a good cast, but we don't have like A-list as far as that goes, where it's like, yeah, we, have a marketing budget and all this stuff. So
are you going to throw it in a theater just to see it in a theater? Like just for maybe like 1 or 2 weekends or anything like that? Yeah.
Well, so we played at the Orlando Film Festival about a month ago.
Oh, nice.
That was nice to see it in a theater. It was not ideal. The theater the auditorium that we played at, had like a issue with their right speaker. So I don't know. It's just sounded funny. And it's like, I've seen the movie on the mixing stage, so I know we don't have issues like that. And then I saw a couple more movies in that same auditorium. They always had an issue. Then I heard like towards the end of the film festival, one of the filmmakers said, oh yeah, you know, the Auditorium 7's got that issue with the right speaker. And I'm like, oh, so they did confirm that that is not working right. And he's like, oh yeah, we had him take a look. And I'm like, all right, well, would have been nice to know before. And I think, oh yeah, actually it's here. So I've got like the DCP of the movie, which is a digital cinema projection file. And so I could take this to like AMC, rent out a theater, and just put my movie up, which I was kind of thinking of doing. Like I was. Man,
I would. If I had a movie, I'd be in there. Yeah, it'd be sweet.
Right? I was thinking of doing like a cast and crew thing in Vegas. Our little bit of an issue is about half the people are in LA and the other half are in Vegas. Of course, most of the cast is LA based, but the crew is like, it depends. Like we did have to pull some from LA. We had a local production designer, and then they pulled out, I think, 6 or 7 weeks before the movie. And I'm like, well, the next guy's going to be busy because there's a lot of production design in this movie. And so we just pulled him from LA. And that's kind of how it went. Like Wardrobe was also from LA. You try as much as you can to get the locals because it helps with the tax incentive. Mm-hmm. Like they give you money back based on local hiring. But you can only work with the people who are in your market. And Vegas is not a huge market yet for film. It's growing fast. Like we have a lot of exciting stuff, but we're not there yet. So
that seems surprising. I feel like Vegas would be a good location to have a film industry. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the stuff going on now is very exciting with that. Like I guess it's Sony is building they're moving their headquarters here, and then there's also, is it Warner Brothers or something? I think they're trying to build a new like headquarters 2, I think they're calling it. But the big thing hinges on those tax incentives. So movies really tend to go where the money is, because especially at the smaller levels, which is most films, they're not mostly $100 million studio films. Like when we say low budget, we mean like $10 million, $20 million, something like that. And so they look at the whole picture and it's like, okay, if we go to Georgia and Georgia will give us 35% tax rebate, well, what they do is they borrow against the tax incentive. So even though you're getting the money after you make the movie, you need the money before you make it to make it. So they go to a company like Bondit and they'll say, all right, so the state is going to give us back $3 million, but like we need to get that now. And so Bondit might say, okay, we'll give you $2.7 million. When the $3 million comes in, we get to keep all 3. And that's the way they make their money. So you're doing this, like all this complicated financing. And then of course you talk to the distributor and they say, all right, well, if you've got, so-and-so, Jennifer Lawrence is your lead, then yeah, we could give you a $6 million minimum guarantee or something like that. And then they borrow against the minimum guarantee as well. So it's this really complicated thing with a bunch of financial instruments in a real house of cards. And that's why sometimes, like when a movie is actually in production, it seems like a minor miracle to everybody. It's like, how do we even get here?
So my final question is, how do you get Eric Roberts involved? And since it's filming in Vegas, is Carrot Top a requirement?
Yeah. So, okay. The Eric one was funny because I didn't know that I didn't know his whole thing about like having been in 800 movies or something. I just knew, Eric Roberts. I love his cameo also from Entourage. It's like one of my favorite episodes. He's so great in that. And so they said to me like, oh, would you like to have Eric Roberts do a cameo? And, I'm kind of thinking like, why not? Who wouldn't want that? But like, are you saying we can get that? I mean, is that something that can happen? And they were like, yeah, he likes to do these indie films, like, and our casting director knows his wife, manager, etc. And so, yeah, sure. So Eric is so funny, and he's like such a such a lover of the arts. I guess he just really loves to do what he does, and so he actually sends us an audition video for the scene. It's like Eric Roberts doesn't need to audition for the scene. Like, we know he's a good actor. That's what the Oscar nomination was, you know? And so I'm like watching this and I'm like, are you kidding? He actually recorded like an audition for it? Like, so we thought even if he doesn't want to be involved, we're going to keep that audition tape because that's just great. And so then, yeah, he ended up saying, yeah, let's do it. It was really a fun scene to film. I still think it's probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie. He's so goofy in it. Like all the time when we're talking about like restaurant prices, you know, anything like that. The line where he's like, inflation, woo! So we'll
he came out of nowhere for me. I was like, holy cow, he's here? This is so funny.
It was just really funny. And so for Carrot Top, I love that. We also had Murray the Magician plays the illustrator, like with the Technoman booth. He's got the big hair and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And so Murray is on like, what is that show? Like it's some sort of like magician show that's been going a long time, and he has his own show on the Strip. It was just front page news here that he's going back. He's going to be at the Strat, but he was playing at the Tropicana until it got imploded, basically, until they shut it down. So I like to have those local flavor things, like a Carrot Top, where, you know, this is a Vegas movie, like in the sense that the real Las Vegas, though, not the Hangover, you know, on the Strip. This is just like normal people. It could have been set anywhere, but I wanted to make sure it kind of had a little flavor of Vegas. And I think it's a hilarious idea that like Carrot Top is actually a big comic fan and stops by Mike's shop. As fun as the cameos were, like I had mentioned, you get your heart set on something that you're like, oh, this would be so cool. So we asked Nicolas Cage to do a cameo.
Oh,
So the producers have, one of them like went to high school with Nick and knew him before he was Cage and all this. And he'd done a couple movies with him in the past. They actually did another movie together this year, like after we wrapped Comic Shop. And I wrote a personal letter to Nicolas Cage and said, I've always been a huge fan. I've seen every movie you've done, big, small. The first movie I ever played in my dad's home theater was Face Off. You know, like he's always been involved like that. So the bummer was his agents, like they thanked me for the letter and they were like, he would absolutely love to do it and would have said yes, but he's in Europe filming another movie until the end of the month. And I was like, oh no, it's like almost the worst thing you can hear is that the answer is yes, but the answer is yes, but I can't actually do it because I'm physically not even in the country. And all I wanted the tiniest little thing. I wanted Nicolas Cage to just walk in and Mike to be looking down at a comic and just briefly look up and go, hey, Nick. And then, you know, have Nicolas Cage just walk by and go, hey, Mike. Just like he's in here every Tuesday, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's no big deal at all. Like we're not even going to really acknowledge that he's a movie star. Mike just is like, yeah, it's just a regular. And I thought that would have been so fun.
So it was so fun. Yeah, it would have been really fun.
You know, of course, we wouldn't. It's one of those things because his name is, you know, worth money. So we wouldn't have used it. We would have had to agree not to use it in any marketing materials, not to put it in the trailer. Don't put his name on the poster. So it would have been a true cameo where, like, you did not see it coming.
Yeah, it would have been a wonderful surprise. It almost would have been fun to have him be like a podcaster he was listening to, like just to virtually have like a Zoom call with Nicolas Cage, just like in the background. Yeah.
I know that would have been funny. And you know, I really they thought, the producers thought like it's probably really unlikely, and they said, well, let's just shoot our shot. You know, like it's really unlikely if you don't ask at all. And the other thing is, you guys probably know, Cage is a huge comics fan. And he used to own Action Comics #1 that got stolen back in 2000. Yeah. Found in a storage locker, I guess, in 2011 or something. But yeah, his son also illustrates a comic or something like that. So I figured this is up his alley. Like if there's a cameo he might say yes to, I think we have a better shot than most because it is kind of, it's small enough that he knows it's a true indie movie. Nobody's trying to like cash grab anything, or this is a passion project. It wasn't made to make money. It was made to make, you know, people happy and to tell a story that I hope can be, you know, of value to lots of people. Because I know it's called The Comic Shop, but you shouldn't have to be into comics to enjoy the movie. It could have been set anywhere. That was kind of just the setting, you know, as far as having this guy in middle age who, you know, to realize that it's not too late. You can still chase your dreams.
Yeah, that was a resounding thing for me too. Is like, this is comics is the topic, but really is just like, are you following what you're passionate about? If you're not, you should be. Right.
Yeah, it's it. I mean, and it could be like if you always want to be an architect and you never did that, you went into accounting or something. And it's kind of like, I guess that it's a cautionary tale. Like it will be too late eventually. But if you're, in your 40s or whatever, even in your 50s, you can still make a go of things. But what you don't want to do is be 75, 80 years old, looking back in your life thinking, man, I never really went for it. What if I had tried to do that? That's got to be a really bad feeling. And that feeling of regret that cannot be changed. When I was in school, so I actually majored in philosophy, and what convinced me to major in philosophy is when I was a film major, the first semester at Loyola Marymount. And we had a new teacher who's filling in for a guy on sabbatical. And of all things, this teacher was so good, he actually won Teacher of the Year that year, even though it was his first year as an actual teacher. And he had us read, it was a class called What is the Best Life? I mean, what a great class already. Like, that what you're going to learn in this class is going to be actually relevant to like living life.
Yes.
So we read a book called The Death of Ivan Ilyich. And it was all about a guy like that who was on his deathbed and his woe is me. His whole life has been a failure. It's, everything has went wrong. And so a lot of the kids were like, oh, it's such a depressing book. And our teacher said, it doesn't have to be a depressing book because you kids are all in college. So this actually should be an inspiring book. Do not become Ivan Ilyich. Like, don't make the kind of choices so that you're on your deathbed regretting the way you lived your life. And so I always think about that story and just think, what does it hurt to go for it?
Yeah,
100%. I actually we just got back. Justin and I just got back from Monaco, so I've been using that as kind of an example to my daughter. Like, I never quit with the podcast. You got to keep just following it because eventually stuff will happen. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us, man. I could talk to you for hours. Please stay in touch. I want to know when this movie comes out, and because I want to make sure I'm spreading it and letting everybody know about it. But let everybody know where they can find you online.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have directorbowen.com. My last name Bowen, and I'm also at Director Bowen on Instagram. So those are two easy ways the website will kind of tell you like what new stuff's going on. I'll even put up this on the blog, that kind of stuff. And as soon as we know the streamer and release date, I will definitely get it out there and to you guys so that,
please,
hopefully we can, spread a little positivity there.
Absolutely.
Before we go, is that a giant replica of the Millennium Falcon? Because if I can get a good shot of that, that'd be pretty sweet. That's pretty awesome.
So that was the first authorized item that Harrison Ford ever signed, and it's a 1-to-1 studio scale Millennium Falcon. I know that they made numbers, like they made a tiny one. There's one that's about like a shoe, and this was like one of the bigger ones, but of course not the full size. Don't have room for that. But it even lights up, like it has little lights on the front and then the back, like the blue,
Yeah.
So it's a neat piece. I got it a long time ago, and I don't want to sell it. I sold.
I wouldn't either. Yeah.
But I love it.
That's incredible. That'd be a coffee table. Everyone would have to see that in my house. Be like, hey, you're gonna come look at my Millennium Falcon. I don't care who you are.
I like to put it there, but maybe you guys can talk to my wife about that.
I would, but I would totally talk to her about
it. Right. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah,
everybody like, comment, subscribe, follow Jonathan. I'll put the links to everything down below.